You saw that preview. Today we're talking about the Emperor TS-5010 and its matching power supply, the Emperor TS-5011. Now this isn't a review video. This radio hasn't been sold in quite some time and everyone else has done a pretty good job reviewing it. I want to go over the quirks with this radio. Have you owned one? Everyone that says that they've owned one has regretted when they sold it. This was manufactured mid-94 to, I want to say, 97. I think I had one brand new in the box back in the day. I was one of those people that did regret getting rid of it. Please tell me your story down below about this radio, or any story you want to tell me about radios. Hey, I'd love to hear it. Did you end up getting this matching power supply? That'd be a very rare thing. I haven't seen many people buy that. They bought the budget version of the HR2510, which, yeah, it killed this radio and that radio if it wasn't already banned on the FCC already in the mid-90s. This Emperor TS-5010 was a nice addition to a very entry-level market of export radios because it was half the price of that. Yeah, like I said, I do have them in various stages of undress up here and over here. I'm up to my elbows in them. I got this heatsink just got painted outside. I want to bring it in. Here's a good tip for you right there. You want to keep heatsink compound off your hands. There you go. Put a piece of tape over it. As much as I touch this stuff, it ends up on my hands all the time. So a very cool little thing here is this is a single final radio, and yeah, we're going to go over a couple of little issues with it. Specifically, we're going to start with the final. The final is an MRF 477. That is an unobtainium piece. So yeah, these radios are rare to begin with, and if you have one, they may not be working because you have a bad final. But they do have some final upgrades you can do to those. You can do a MOSFET conversion, I'm sure. Second issue is glue. Yes, folks, that famous conductive corrosive radio block glue. Yeah, that's what they called it, radio block. As I show you this radio that's half blocked. Sorry about that, but yeah, that radio glue, radio block, is this molasses colored stuff here, and this is two electrolytic capacitors I have removed to get at the parts here, and you can tell that's a resistor, what's left of one. Yes, it's one of the issues with this glue, this radio block that was used in coated a lot of these components in Untitled and Cobra radios, other manufacturers. This is a Techstar board, and yeah, sure enough, everything here is coated in this glue, and it was made to keep parts on the board a little easier, not rattling around. One of the problems with this glue is as it gets older, it starts off as a nice, beautiful tan color and then turns into this junk, is it eats away and becomes conductive and corrosive. Two of the things you don't want a radio, globs in your radio to be doing is becoming conductive and corrosive. Yeah, that's the two qualities they didn't think about of this glue over time, and the heat. Yeah, it literally destroyed a lot of these radios. So I know why a lot of times these Emperor 5010s didn't make it. If they worked and someone didn't blow up the final and glue. So yeah, it also needs a full recap, and that's normal for any of these type of radios. But the layout is pretty similar to a 2510 and a Lincoln, don't you think? It's pretty similar. Eerily similar type board, except the modification of this is a little different. I'll give you this one for free. It's $40 in the book when I bought the book to be able to do this before the internet. As that resistor there gets clipped and that resistor there gets clipped, in magic you have all your channels. That's it's almost like they thought of that. I'm not sure. It's very convenient. And we have a CR 2032. That one's going to have to get replaced. This one is not as terrible as the 2950. When you have a 2950, first gen of those 2950s, first couple I think, had severe issues with that battery. If that battery, even if you didn't use memory, this is just storing the memory channels on this, even if you didn't store the memory channels in the 2950, that thing would get corrupted every time you turned it off, turned it on. It would just be all over the place. I have a video on that as well. But yeah, that's one of the issues that with this radio is that glue. Yeah, just the normal recap. Now there's another thing here. This backlight has a dimmer board There, it has a dimming resistor, as a voltage limiting resistor right there. So what we're doing is adding a little bit of a dimness to that, and you always think that's a better way to do it, and you save the life of the lamps. But I found this thing out the hard way, is that dimming limiting resistor. Let's see if we can get that in somewhat of a view. It is right there, and yeah, that resistor is right there. It's a large resistor. There it is, right there. So that resistor right there gets extremely hot when you're sitting there with this dim lamp on, which doesn't help to heat this whole radio up with all that glue in there. But yes, that thing burned me. And it also on this, it's hard to see, but yeah, it discolored, and it is slowly cooking that board. Very, very dry board now. It's very brittle. So I'm going to replace this backlights, which are shown here as these two orange lights, the grain of wheat bulbs there. One right there and one right there. And that's just firing off the light. But that, yeah, LED will go ahead and eliminate that heat going through that resistor. That's ridiculous. Anyway, that's one of the 2 quirks so far, and I've done a couple upgrades on this radio for all the other kind of quirks that I have found. Now, one of the quirks I have found is the AGC on this thing. It would just blare in. These stations were just so strong, and the volume was just not consistent with weak and strong stations, so I had to modify the AGC. And I relocked the clarifier on this, and I'll show you why in a second. And I did a modification, and I put a high cut filter in. I put a 0.68 puff ceramic capacitor in there because, yeah, this TS-11 is a front firing speaker built in as well, and that was necessary because I was just unbelievably present with noise. So that eliminated a lot of the noise, as you heard in that clip. And I have that on all the time. I didn't set it up to switch. And the thing that I wanted to show about the quirks is, I'm going to turn this dimmer off so we can see a little better, is the quirks that I had here is when you change the channels on C-band. Now this is the modified version of the C right there. It's going to give you a large C for CB band, and a little C will be one of the ham bands. Now check this out. When you go through these channels, this is an odd quirk that we get one alpha channel. We get 11A. We don't have any other alpha channels, but they did include 11A. I'm not sure exactly why. I found that odd and very interesting. Why did they include 11A? Do you know that? Let me know, please. It's very, very confusing why it would only be one channel, one A channel. But everything else matches up just fine. And if you're in CB band, it will just stay with the CB band and continue 1 through 40 continuous. Now this channel matches up 1 through 40, very nice, so you know exactly where you're at. Now the issue with this is when you try and do the span over, which is the bottom highlighted, it doesn't matter what you do, you can't change minus the CB channel. So I know a lot of people use that to do slide, and yeah, I can understand exactly why that would be. Another quirk that's included with this is that when you try and go above 40 or below 40, you're going to have to go to one of the bands. I don't have anything programmed in. Now I'm going to go over to span because we know we need to be on the last digit needs to end in a 5 for CB. Now we're 27505, so that's the unofficial channel 50. So what we can do is go down and we can use the regular CB band, right? Now the problem is you'll see that this doesn't match up any longer. Now we're 27365 is channel 37. And now it gets even worse is when we go right here. What channel are we on? Channel 21 is channel 20. So, and then this skips right around 25. So yeah, you have to know the frequency. So when you're above and below, or just using the CB band, you know, above and below channels, this almost needs to be like that because it doesn't matter. That's kind of one of the quirks I wish, because you don't need to know where you're at because you're not technically on channel 44 or channel 45, you're on 40 unofficial 44, 38's 39. So I understand why people would use that RIT, because then you have to go over to the span and you can change this any which way you want. The one thing you can't do is megahertz. You can't go above that decimal to be able to get 26 quickly or 29 quickly. So the actual frequency coverage on this is 26065 to 30.199. That's exactly the last one we will take. So when we span over, we go back. See, we're playing around here, right? A lot of button presses. So as a mobile, this is almost not a good choice. Now, let's say we're going to use, the channel buttons here. We'll be able to just go 56, like this, 57. Well, that's not how this is set up. Now, I have left these channel buttons. These represent the same ones on the microphone. Now, the microphone is another rare piece of this radio, because a lot of people got rid of this microphone because this thing is not a powerhouse for audio. It is not loud on AM, and on sideband it is manageable. A lot of people just ended up getting, back in the day, of course, you could get this, is the 575M6. This is the one that has the volume control and tone. Yes, you can get the one with the volume control, but they used to make one with the tone, and that was the 575M6. They don't make that anymore. Why? Because it was very popular. I'm unsure, but yeah, the Road Kings and all the ones kind of have the same form factor, but they are not the microphone static put out back in the day. So we have this microphone. We're just going to go ahead and use it like this. We're on mobile. We can go to 58, 59, unofficially, of course, right? Well, that's not how that works. And I'll show you by representing something in the CB band. So we're in channel 32. Now I want to hit the microphone buttons, or these would just bring you up a channel. Well, these did not. What it would do is that it would bring you up to the next bank, but it wasn't programmed properly. So you couldn't use this or the mic buttons, because you would just have to go back for every channel to go like that. But you hit this again, sure enough, now you're in between. So that was a weird quirk, and I was able to fix that on mine here. Just a quick modification of some wires, and yeah, now when we go back over to span, we actually can function up and down buttons like that. So yeah, that was one of the issues that I had with this as well. Yeah, this radio is kind of fun, kind of cool. It's puts out about 25 watts. I'm into a dummy load, and I'm on sideband here. This is a stock mic, so let's see what it says. Audio 11111. Yeah, it seems to be doing right about 20 or so watts, and that's what is expected. I don't have it going in anything minus that dummy load. And yeah, man, that's the bearer of bad news of this radio, is that glue is taking a lot of these out, actually. And a couple of modifications. I have one here that has talkback, but it's not true talkback. It's talkback. It's just like a monitor. So when you're on sideband, it sounds like you're listening to someone on sideband when you're on AM. It just, all you hear is your muffled sideband voice. So I got to figure out what somebody did to that, but they're all in various stages of repair. But yeah, if you have a TS-5010, it may need some service if it hasn't already gotten some service. First thing to do, just pull those covers off and see how your board looks. I've had a lot of people say they had dim lights, and they always think it's a bad power supply. But the lights back here, dimming, could be some of the glue getting at the components, and definitely those capacitors, dielectric drying up as well. So I got to get into this a little bit more. I've been busy with some of those channel kits and all that other stuff, and I've been getting backed up with these projects. So I'm going to get into this Emperor TS-5011 in another video. You don't see this so much anymore, or at all. I rarely see these, and when you do, it's just a review of them. So I'm going to pop the covers and get inside this Emperor TS-5011 power supply. Have you ever seen one? I've never seen the inside of one. I know we have a front-facing speaker, and we have a 1/4 inch jack for headphones. Yeah, I I'd like to see what's inside this. So we're going to do that in the next video. I do appreciate you stopping by, and please throw a comment down below with your fun radio stories about this or any other radio, and go ahead and subscribe because we're going to get into this power supply next. I do appreciate it. Thank y'all.